Hello everyone and welcome to this episode of Ignition Time. In this video, I'm going to tell you why the American people got crumbs, even though they got the $1,400 stimulus checks. If you think $1,400 stimulus checks essentially are generous, you're going to think again after you watch this video. In the grand scheme of things, $1,400 stimulus checks aren't much considering all the other spending that goes on with the US government. Also, I'll tell you about the unbelievable difference in the economic impact, the financial impact of this pandemic on renters versus homeowners. First, let's start with a recent statement from Speaker Pelosi on her website. As you can see, this is Speaker Pelosi's statement on the infrastructure and jobs plan. And Speaker Pelosi says, building our transportation system has long been bipartisan. It is our hope that spirit will prevail as we address other critical areas in energy and broadband, education and housing, water systems, and other priorities. As we engage in these job-creating initiatives, we must discuss the impact on the federal budget, on creating economic growth, and on preserving our planet. You can start to see that the focus of the Democrats is already shifting towards the infrastructure plan, towards the Build Back Better agenda, which is going to be the next major focus of the Biden administration. Now, in case our viewers and subscribers are wondering, hey, what is the actual economic impact? What's the financial cost of this $1,400 stimulus check that's going out to 85% of American households? Well, here are the numbers. The $1,400 stimulus checks cost the US government $422 billion out of the $1.9 trillion infrastructure package. Now, let's compare that with how much we spend annually on other measures. Yes, annually on other measures. Annually, the US government spends $4 trillion. That is the entire US budget of the US government. $800 billion goes towards Medicare. Yes, Medicare accounts for $800 billion in annual spending. The military budget is $750 billion in annual spending. And the Republican tax cuts cost the US government approximately $200 billion a year. So once again, the annual budget of the US government is $4 trillion. Medicare costs $800 billion a year. The military budget is $750 billion, and the Republican tax cuts are costing the country approximately $200 billion a year because these tax cuts allowed the wealthy to pay less by way of income taxes. Now remember, these tax cuts will be phased out. So even when they are phased out, there's still going to be a loss for the US government in terms of the amount of revenue it brings in. Now, the president spoke recently at the White House Rose Garden, and as you can imagine, the president is pushing the success of the $1.9 trillion stimulus plan, the fact that it's enacted so quickly, and the fact that the $1,400 stimulus checks have already started to go out and have already started to arrive for some people via electronic deposit. Here's what the president said. He said, this massive $1.9 trillion bill puts working people in this nation first. And he said some other things that were really interesting. Let's roll the tape and hear recent comments from the President of the United States from the Rose Garden. Let's watch.
This legislation extends unemployment insurance by $300 a week until September. It's going to help 11 million Americans who were days from losing that benefit. This legislation includes the biggest investment in child care since World War II. That's not hyperbole, that's just a fact. It's a fact. It provides help for small businesses to stay open. And 400,000, so many have had to close because the first time around, you all worked and did a great piece of work in the House, passing significant legislation. What's the first thing the last president did? He fired the folks who were supposed to watch and make sure it got, in fact, distributed the way it was supposed to. We find out so much of it went to people who didn't need it. You all took care of that. It extends coverage and lowers healthcare costs for so many Americans. So many Americans, and it's a big number for people. It provides for food and nutrition because people knew, and you all were out there handing out food like many of us were, but you saw people who were in car lines that were literally miles long. You'd see 4 lanes of cars that went back for half a mile each just to get a box of food. Again, through no fault of their own. It's going to help people keep a roof over their heads. 500,000 haven't been able to make their mortgage payments. About to be thrown out of their apartments. They have to make up all that they owe. And those mom and pop realtors are in real trouble. It's going to cut child poverty in half I've talked to so many of you. Rosa, you and I have spent so much time on this. But you guys, you, Patty, and others are the ones who have been leading this for so long. And it's finally coming to fruition. And the American people understand it. It pays for many of the steps we've taken to vaccinate Americans. We're going to be in a position where, because of what you all did and passed, we had the money to go out and literally purchased hundreds of millions of vaccines and then go out and make sure we had enough vaccinators. Vaccine's one thing. To get the vaccine in a vial, out of that vial and into a needle and needle into someone's arm, took tens of thousands of people. And because of you, we were able to mobilize the military. We were able to mobilize FEMA. I was able by executive order to allow former docs and nurses to come back and be able to engage in this activity. And one of the things that we said in the beginning that no one thought that I was being straight about was I said, this is going to create, we have to spend this money to make sure we have economic growth, unrelated to how much it's going to help people. Well, guess what? Every single major economist out there, left, right, and center, supported this plan. Even Wall Street agreed. According to Moody's, for example, by the end of this year, this law alone will create 7 million new jobs. 7 million. And the bill does one more thing, which I think is really important. It changes the paradigm. For the first time in a long time, this bill puts working people in this nation first. It's not hyperbole, it's a fact. For too long, it's been the folks at the top. They're not bad folks. A significant number of them know they shouldn't be getting the tax breaks they had. But it's put the richest Americans first who benefited the most. And the theory was, we've all heard it, especially the last 15 years, the theory was cut taxes and those at the top and the benefits they get will trickle down to everyone. Well, you saw what trickle down does. We've known it for a long time, but this is the first time we've been able, since the Johnson administration, and maybe even before that, to begin to change the paradigm. We've seen time and time again that that trickle down does not work. And by the way, we don't have anything against wealthy people. You got a great idea, you're going to go out and make millions of dollars. That's fine. I have no problem with that. But guess what? You got to pay your fair share. You got to pay something because guess what? Folks who are living on the edge, they're paying. And so again, all it's done is make those at the top richer in the past and everyone else falling behind. This time, it's time that we build an economy that grows from the bottom up and the middle out. The middle out. And this bill shows that when you do that, everybody does better. The wealthy do better. Everybody does better across the board. If that's our foundation, then everything we build upon will be strong, a strong foundation. Our competitiveness around the world, the jobs here at home, the health and quality of our lives. That's what the American Rescue Plan represents. And it's all about rebuilding what I've been saying, and Bernie and a lot of others are saying, the backbone of this country.
Vice President Kamala Harris also joined the president at the Rose Garden to celebrate the passage and the signing of the American Rescue Plan into law. Now that the benefits are starting to get computed, now that the benefits have started to go out, this is what the Vice President said. Because of you, Mr. President, help has arrived. And on behalf of our nation, thank you. Let's roll the tape and hear from Vice President Kamala Harris.
You, Mr. President, have carried a card in your breast pocket with the number of those Americans who have died from COVID-19. Every day he carries that card, literally keeping their memory close to your heart. You have grieved, Mr. President, out loud with our nation, mourning the loss of so many extraordinary Americans. Your empathy has become a trademark of your presidency and can be found on each and every page of the American Rescue Plan. Joe Biden, Mr. President, you had a vision, you had a purpose, and you had faith that the American people, regardless of who they voted for, would support this plan, simply because it will help. You had faith that Congress would pass this plan simply because it is the best thing for the American people. And you put in the work to make it happen, to get relief directly to the American people. And we've both served in the Senate, so we know there's rarely been a bill that's so concrete and tangible. Mr. President, people will feel and they will see what we all did here. They will see the checks in their bank accounts. They will see the child tax credits when they file their taxes, when they return to work, when they return to school, when they reopen their businesses, when they hug their grandchildren for the first time in a year. Americans will see what we did here, what you did, Mr. President. And they will feel the impact of this bill for generations to come. And that's what happens when you make historic investments in communities of color, in tribal communities, in rural communities. That's what happens when you lift half of those children living in poverty out of poverty. Because of you, Mr. President, help has arrived, and on behalf of our nation, thank you. And it is now my great, great honor to introduce the President of the United States of America, Joe Biden.
Now, the good news is some people are getting help, but the disproportionate impact of this pandemic has been unbelievable. Individuals in travel, leisure, entertainment, and hospitality have been impacted more than others. African American and Hispanic individuals have been impacted more than others. Women have been impacted more than men. This has been an unbelievable pandemic, and now new data that is actually pointed out by Heather Long. Heather is the economics correspondent for the Washington Post, and she points out that 22% of renters saw their total income fall by more than 10% last year. 1 in every 4 renters, even after getting stimulus checks and after getting unemployment income. And on the other hand, homeowners didn't do so badly. Here's new data from JP Chase. JP Chase did some research where they compared renters versus homeowners. You see this article on your screen, renters versus homeowners, income and liquid asset trends during the pandemic. As always, you'll get a link to all of our resources in the description section below. Let's scroll down this article and get to the section where they compare the data between renters and homeowners. So as you can see in this particular survey, they compared 668,000 renters with 617,000 mortgage holders, and the data that they came up with is pretty incredible. Let's take a look at the median income and liquid assets. Now, liquid assets basically imply how much money they have in their bank account and could they come up with that money if there was to be an emergency. Now, on the left side of your screen, you see the before tax family income. The green portion corresponds to renters and the blue portion corresponds to mortgage holders. The portion in the middle is their after tax take home pay in February 2020, and the right side represents their liquid assets, how much money they have in case of an emergency. Let's start with the right side. You can see that renters have significantly lower liquid assets than mortgage holders. Now let's take a look at the middle of this chart where you see the after-tax take-home income in early 2020, and you can start to see again that mortgage holders are taking home significantly more money than renters, and this essentially highlights the fact that renters are in much more of a financial jam. Here's a chart on your screen that shows you that renters received a higher share of unemployment insurance. In other words, more renters needed unemployment benefits compared to mortgage holders during the pandemic, indicating that mortgage holders had less job loss compared to renters. Take a look at the green section on your screen that represents renters and the blue section represents mortgage holders. Renters suffered significantly more than mortgage holders and were significantly more dependent on unemployment benefits. Now, this is where things get a little bit more disturbing. There was a difference in the financial prospects for renters prior to the pandemic and after the pandemic. Let's take a look at this chart on your screen. Renters experienced a shift. Before the pandemic, they were more likely than mortgage holders to have modest gains, to have income gains. And by the way, this represents the growth in our economy prior to the pandemic. And after the pandemic, renters were more likely to have substantial decreases in labor income as a direct result of the pandemic. Take a look at the distribution of labor changes on your screen right now. 33% of renters, 1 in every 3 renters lost at least 10% of their income as a direct result of the pandemic. Now let's take a look at the next chart, which makes this even more difficult to digest. Take a look at this chart. Even after unemployment insurance and EIP, economic impact payments, meaning the stimulus checks, renters saw their income change. Basically, they saw their income decrease despite the financial assistance they got from the government, and a significant portion of renters had material decreases in income. In other words, if you look at this chart on your screen, 22% of renters lost at least 10% of their income despite getting both stimulus checks and unemployment benefits in 2020. Now, if you thought that was bad, renters saw a substantial decline in their liquid assets, in their savings. Their savings just disappeared. Let's take a look at this chart on your screen. Both the median renter and mortgage holder saw their savings increase in 2020 thanks to the stimulus checks, thanks to the unemployment benefits. But renters depleted more of their additional savings by the end of the year. Remember, the $600 a week booster ran out in July. The lost wages assistance program was temporary. Money ran out and people simply didn't have their jobs back, which is why if you take a look at this chart, the green section represents renters whose savings declined as we got closer to the end of the year. But mortgage holders, they were doing substantially better. But take a closer look at the chart. Both were struggling, but renters were struggling much more. And finally, if you've been following our channel, you've been following the extensive coverage of all the benefits within the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan, including subsidized healthcare for middle-income families. Here's a new article on your screen from CNN, and as always, we'll provide you with the links to all of our resources in the description section below. Stimulus-enhanced Affordable Care Act subsidies are coming on the 1st of April, but the unemployed will have to wait a little bit longer. So if you're already making money, you'll start to see the federal government chipping in to help you with your insurance premiums so that you can afford insurance more effectively. Through the end of this year, through September of this year, only 8.5% of your annual gross income will be applied towards health insurance premiums. The federal government will pay for the rest. But what if you're unemployed? Well, you're simply going to have to wait a little bit longer, according to this article. And again, we'll provide you with a link to the article in the description section below. Let me know in the comments if this is something you want me to cover as we get closer to definitive news and definitive information about health insurance coverage and federal subsidies towards the Affordable Care Act for the unemployed. That's it, everyone. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you learned something new about how much money we're getting relative to the big picture and the fact that renters are struggling more than homeowners. If you have any questions, please type them out into the comment section below. Our community is growing very, very rapidly. I encourage you to join our community. Also, check us out on Twitter. There's my Twitter feed right there. Follow us on Twitter because you'll be able to follow along with me as I review the day's news, as I retweet in real time, and it's a way for us to engage and essentially keep up with the news in real time. So definitely follow me on Twitter. I'm looking forward to interacting with you there. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. Please click the like button. Please subscribe. Please enable notifications. It really helps out the YouTube algorithm. Thank you so much for your time. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. Take care. Bye.